That's character. See, that's why history says a bad mathematics student in school has been classified by humanity as the greatest inventor of all times. That requires character. So when you get a glimpse of your potential, that's when passion is born. People say, no, I need to learn everything, then I'll get excited. No, the train leaves the station. The train leaves the station. You ask any player, and I've met a lot of athletes. Wayne Gretzky, you may have heard the name, is an ice hockey player. Wayne Gretzky, and you don't need to know ice hockey to understand my illustration. Usually during the course of a season, a year's long worth of playing, if a player scores 100 points, and he does that 3 or 4 years in a row, he will probably go into the Hall of Fame of hockey. Wayne Gretzky scored 200 points 7 times in his career. Arguably the greatest hockey player who ever played the game of ice hockey. When they asked him what his genius was attributed to, he said, I skate to where I think the puck is going to be. Which means if all the action is here, he skates over here realizing that that's where the puck's going to be and he can score a goal. Now, in order to do that, he's going to be wrong roughly 95% of the time. But you have to be willing to take the risk. See, if you wait for it to be right 100% of the time, you're going to operate out of fear. And fear, if you remember nothing else from what I've talked about today, is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. See, you are no longer working in a small compound where about 30 or 40 different companies incubate their empires so you can come and have a meeting. You are now a global denizen, which means you are a citizen of the world. 7 billion people will walk this planet during your lifetime, and there is not another just like you. So as much as you feel alone in a 7 billion planet environment, it is a great travesty if you let the only you go unused. You want excellence? Don't worry about the others. Worry about yourself. Stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, what did you do today to make a difference? So first principle was, are you paying attention? First principle was? Progress, not perfection. Second?
Feed your ego.
Family, not your ego. Third is, when passion is born, you will get a glimpse of your potential. Fourth is, a good reputation is worth more long term. See, a lot of us are short-term thinkers, and that's myopic. Short-sightedness is myopia. Long-term thinking has to be praying for long-term voluntary change in our attitudes and behaviors. Long-term voluntary change. One of the examples I love sharing, and I've been sharing it everywhere. So Lynette heard it yesterday, she'll hear it again today, and as long as I talk in India on this trip, I'll share this example. Our principle is, a good reputation is worth more long-term. My dad will turn 78 this month, which means he's 77 right now. In 1955, my father graduated with his BSc degree in 3rd class from Andhra University. My father's parents couldn't afford electricity, so my daddy studied under a street light to graduate from college. Upon graduation, he became an operator for Caltex Refinery and the construction company that preceded it in Visakhapatnam and went to work. Very quickly, 2 of his brothers wanted to live with him because he had been given a company accommodation. So dad and mom, 2 brothers and their wives with suitcases piled to the ceiling for privacy, stayed in a one-bedroom house. That's how my daddy began his life. He had a very illustrious life. He went on to become the joint managing director of a company, operations manager of a company. My father, who was never a graduate engineer, at one time had 400 engineers working for him. Self-taught man. His office, he had a screen put in his office, and there was one desk in front that was clean and very executive. But the screen was behind the chair, which means he had a button that would bring the curtain behind him. And when people left his office, he would push the button and the screen would open and he would turn around to another desk that was filled with chemical engineering texts and fluid mechanics manuals, and he was a self-taught man. But in his heart was always the desire to finish the rest of his pursuit. At the age of 75, my daddy went back to Andhra University to begin his master's in philosophy and logic. And at the age of 77, last September, he graduated with his master's degree. Now I asked my dad, why did you do it? And his response is so simple, it's almost asinine. I wonder why I'm a speaker and he's not. Because I can. Because I can. 40-odd people took the exam. Except for one person in the 60s, everybody was in their 20s. Only 9 people got over 60% of marks in the master's in philosophy. It's very hard to get a first division because it's a theoretical subject. And my dad was one of them. Handwritten notes. So inspiring is my father's story that my mother was married to my father when she was in the 8th grade, at the age of 14. Went to live with him at 15, brother at 16, me at 19. Mama went back to school and got her bachelor's degree and graduated at 80. But she this year enrolled in Andhra University's Masters of History program. And my dad is now helping my mother with his homework. They have been married 57 years. That is joy, folks, for a son, to see his father helping his mother with her homework so they can both live a life and a legacy that is worthy of repetition. But the story doesn't end with me. When my boy watches that, he begins to understand his father. See, this is part of generational thought. Excellence is not something that you suddenly show up and you have a neat desk. That's a personality. Finishing a task on time and being conscious of that, that's learning. Being cognizant of the fact that other people depend on you, that's leadership. But excellence is a soul-crying word. So when you want workplace excellence, I cannot instill it in you. It has to be birthed from within. And it has to come through example. If you don't have examples, search for them. If you can't find examples, become one. If you don't have examples, search for them. If you can't find examples, become one. How simple it is. This New Year's, my parents are in America, so this New Year's I took my dad and my son on a cruise. We went on a big ship to Mexico. And the most prized moment of my life was when I had a picture with my dad and son, and I just titled it, Generational Blessing. See, that's how you have excellence is a virtue. It is something that you have to desire from the very bottom of your heart, not so that you will look good. See, motivation is a motive for action. Whose motive is it? If your desire is to motivate your team so that they'll perform and you'll look good, that's manipulation. If you motivate them so that they will look good whether you look good or not, that's motivation. Motivation will get you going, but habit will get you there. You make motivation a habit and you'll get there quicker and have more fun along the way. 2 quick illustrations and then we'll open it up for some questions. First illustration is, I heard this story about 2 guys and they were watching the television. And the first fellow turned to the second fellow and said, you see that fellow on the TV, he's standing on the building, I think he's going to jump. The second friend said, no, he's not going to jump. So like 2 friends would, they decided to wager some money, bet. They took a 10 rupee bet. And as soon as they had finished making the bet for 10 rupees, the fellow on the TV jumped. So the first friend turned to the second friend and said, give me my money. Second friend gave him the 10 rupees. As the first friend